I have the great privilege of living in a country with religious tolerance and freedom. And as part of that freedom, I get to hear people argue about does God exist or not, and if God exists, why doesn't he care, and which God is the right God, and which religion should I follow, and when did the church get corrupted, and all those other fun arguments. One argument I have heard a number of times goes like this. Now, this argument is not new. It is a form of Pascal's wager. Blaise Pascal was a French mathematician and scientist in the 17th century. He has a number of other things named after him, including a law, a triangle, and a theorem. While Pascal's mathematical works and scientific works are still regarded well and used today, it's his work on religion that is very contentious. A matter of fact, go anywhere on the internet and you'll find dozens and dozens of blogs and videos debunking Pascal's wager. Here, I want to give it a defense, a qualified defense. Pascal's great theological work is entitled Pensées, which is thoughts. And it really is his thoughts. It's a series of aphorisms that he did not finish. He died before his work was completed and probably would have entitled it something like an apology for the Christian religion, because that's what he's trying to do in this text. Pensées is, to say the very least, an extremely passionate work. He's really articulating everything that he believes with a great deal of emotion, a great deal of forward momentum. Reading it, you feel like you're on this runaway train. Pascal's serious because he knows that his time on earth is limited. The most important part, of course, is the wager, where he outlines what he would forever then be known for in the theological world. Let's take a look.
Let us examine this point and say, God is, or he is not. But to which side shall we incline? Reason can decide nothing here. There is an infinite chaos which separated us. A game is being played at the extremity of his infinite distance, where heads or tails will turn up. What will you wager? According to reason, you can do neither the one thing or the other. According to reason, you can defend neither of your propositions. There is here an infinity of an infinitely happy life to gain, a chance of gain against a finite number of chances of loss, and what you have at stake is finite. It is all divided. Wherever the infinite is, and there is not an infinity of chances of loss against that gain, there is no time to hesitate. You must give it all. And thus, when one is forced to play, he must renounce reason to preserve his life, rather than risk it for infinite gain.
My response to that criticism is that it's pretty clear that Pascal was writing to his specific country, his specific environment, in a specific time. So he's writing against atheism, and Christianity in his context was the only other alternative. If he were writing in the present day, I'm sure he would have made his argument very differently. Pascal wants to address belief as a verb. Belief as the life that you're living. Pascal, from what I see him, is a forerunner to the existentialists. Existentialism is a philosophical school that's commonly seen as being very dominant in the middle part of the 20th century, even though it has roots with some 19th century figures like Soren Kierkegaard and Dostoevsky. So existentialists aren't looking at, say, the big metaphysical questions. Those are questions like, what is the nature of time? What is the nature of reality? Really, the existentialists are saying, how shall we live? Who are we? Why did we get here? What do we owe this to? Where do we go from here? So I want to emphasize very much that Pascal's wager is not supposed to be a defense for the existence of God. It's a defense to why one is justified to be a Christian. Pascal clearly believes that God is not only infinite, but is ultimately incomprehensible. He doesn't try to define God in some specific terms or to fit him into some kind of naturalistic, scientific model. God is God. Man is man, and there is this infinite gap. So, what's really going on here? Pascal, the scientist, the mathematician, is trying to prove that it can be rational to be irrational. It can be rational to follow one's convictions when there really isn't any other way to determine the answer. That is something powerful. That's why Pascal makes so many arguments in the Pensée about why reason doesn't always bring us to the truth. Is that a dangerous thing to think? It just might be. But he goes there. The Old English roots of the word believe don't mean belief as we usually say about just asserting the truth claim of something. Really, it comes from the same root as to love, to hold dear. To believe is something that you live. It's something that you assert every day. It's something that changes you. That's what it means to believe something. In the New Testament, the word, the Greek word, the ancient Greek word that is translated as faith is pistis, which more accurately translated would be more like faithfulness. We are saved by our faithfulness. We are saved by Christ's faithfulness. Faithfulness isn't a box that you check off. It's demonstrated in you. It is a conviction. It's something that is followed through. Your faithfulness can continue despite your faith, your feelings in a moment being tempered. Yes, Pascal argues that you can make yourself believe something. You can. We do it all the time. In the late 19th century, the great American philosopher William James, who wrote the first psychology textbook and was the first professor of psychology at Harvard University, wrote a very influential essay called The Will to Believe, where he resurrected certain aspects of Pascal's wager. James argues that because conclusive evidence is not available for a great number of things, it can be justified to act on something just based on your convictions, just based on your faith, because the understanding and the evidence of the usefulness of a certain lifestyle, of a certain belief system, cannot be understood unless you are within it. So he would take the position that you can will yourself to believe something. And it is ultimately rational, at times, to be irrational. To not just simply wait for the sense of conviction, because do or do not, you are still making a choice. In not deferring to this call for conclusive evidence. And so, as Pascal so succinctly put it, the heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of.